Let's jump right into this explainer, because today we are completely dismantling a massive myth. For decades, pop culture has fed us this extremely specific image of the ultimate leader and negotiator. You know the type, right? The table-pounding, loud, aggressively dominant powerhouse who just bullies everyone into submission. But here's the thing. When you actually look at the data, the historical records, and the hardcore science of behavioral psychology, that aggressive approach is basically a guaranteed recipe for failure. So today, we're going to uncover the true secret to commanding a room. We're going to figure out exactly how to be the absolute best negotiator while simultaneously being a truly great leader. And the wildest part? We're going to do it by connecting three completely fascinating and seemingly unrelated worlds. So, here is the big question that sets up our entire journey today. What do a Roman emperor, a lead international FBI hostage negotiator, and a world-renowned dog behaviorist actually have in common? I mean, on the surface, absolutely nothing. But as we start unpacking the specific philosophies of Marcus Aurelius, Chris Voss, and Caesar Millen, you're going to see that they're actually teaching the exact same fundamental framework. Together, they hold the combined secret to elite leadership and negotiation. It's a concept we call the inside-out approach. Let's kick things off with step one of this inside-out approach, which is internal mastery. And for that, we have to turn to Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome. Think about it. As emperor, this guy had absolute, unimaginable, unchecked power over the known world. Yet, if you read his private journals, the Meditations, they are almost entirely focused on controlling the one thing he actually struggled with, his own mind. The fundamental Stoic premise here is a huge wake-up call. You simply cannot lead others, and you definitely can't navigate complex negotiations until you know how to govern your own internal state. Aurelius actually wrote that a true leader has to be, quote, unspotted by pleasure, undaunted by pain, a wrestler of the best sort. He strongly believed that while human beings have a rational, intellectual side, we also have these sensitive and appetitive urges, which he pretty frankly just called brutish. To be a wrestler of the best sort literally means you are in a constant state of pinning down those brutish, highly emotional, reactive instincts, ensuring that your rational mind stays completely in charge of the show. Now, this brings us to a really crucial concept, Stoic apatheia. Please don't confuse this with our modern word, apathy. It does not mean walking around like some cold, unfeeling robot. The text actually defines it as being unpassionate and free from tumultuousness, while still remaining most tender-hearted. Basically, it is perfect emotional regulation. It means you are fully engaged, you genuinely care, but you are never, ever taken hostage by your own emotional reactions. If someone insults you, or if a high-stakes negotiation suddenly goes sideways, your heart rate doesn't even spike. You just remain totally tranquil. Okay, so how does this internal Stoic control look on the outside? To figure that out, we're bringing in dog behaviorist Cesar Millan. Millan talks a lot about the language of energy. Dogs obviously don't understand our words, right? But they can read our energy in a matter of seconds. And Millan breaks this down into two completely contrasting styles, angry-aggressive versus calm-assertive. Angry-aggressive energy is essentially an adult temper tantrum. It's bullying, it's yelling, and it's highly unstable. In the animal kingdom, an angry-aggressive animal is literally never the pack leader, because the rest of the pack views them as totally unpredictable and weak. The true leader is always calm, assertive, deeply relaxed, but absolutely unwaveringly confident that they are in control. Because here's the thing, nature absolutely hates a vacuum. In a dog's world, there are really only two roles. You are either the leader or you are the follower. If the human isn't up to the task of leading, the dog will instinctively take over just to ensure the pack survives. And that usually ends with disastrous results, like the human they literally drag down the street. But think about how perfectly this applies to human negotiations and corporate boardrooms. If you walk into a room without that calm assertiveness, if you're acting anxious or needy or you're easily triggered, the person across the table is going to instinctively take the lead. And just like that, you become the follower. So, let's build the bridge here. When you take the Roman emperor's internal emotional regulation and you combine it with the dog whisperer's external calm assertive presence, you unlock step 3. You unlock the ability to execute the incredibly powerful strategies of former lead FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss. Because I promise you, without that calm, unshakable baseline, the elite tool we are about to discuss, tactical empathy, is completely impossible to use. Voss teaches that your absolute best tool for influencing a counterpart is tactical empathy. Now, let's be super clear about this. Empathy is not sympathy. You do not have to agree with the other person's values, and you certainly aren't passing out hugs, especially not to bank robbers. Tactical empathy is the strategic ability to recognize the perspective of your counterpart and actually vocalize that recognition. It is paying intense, deliberate attention to their emotional obstacles so you can chart a clear pathway to an agreement. It is, as Voss calls it, emotional intelligence on steroids. And it's the absolute hallmark of a negotiator who genuinely leads the room. So, how do we actually do this? Well, Voss outlines 3 highly actionable skills: mirroring, labeling, and the accusation audit. These are precision tools designed to disarm your counterpart, build incredibly rapid trust, and gather vital information. But you have to remember our golden rule here. These tools will spectacularly backfire if you are acting agitated or aggressive. They absolutely require that stoic, calm, assertive foundation to work. So let's dive into the first one. Let's start with mirroring. It is ridiculously simple, but psychologically devastating. All you do is just repeat the last 1 to 3 critical words someone said. That's it. When psychologist Richard Wiseman tested this, he found that waiters who simply mirrored customer orders back to them got a staggering 70% higher tip. 70%! It triggers this deep biological instinct that makes the other person elaborate and subconsciously bond with you. Next up, we have the art of labeling. Think of this as a complete shortcut to intimacy. Labeling is a way of validating someone's emotion by simply acknowledging it out loud. You spot the emotion they are feeling and you name it using very specific phrasing, like "it seems like" or "it sounds like." The absolute golden rule here is to avoid the word "I." Never say "I'm hearing that," because the word "I" immediately gets people's guard up. It makes the conversation about you. Once you drop the label, you have to do the hardest thing in the world. You go completely silent and you just let the label do its work. Why do labels work like magic? Well, in literally any conflict, you've got the presenting behavior. That's the loud demands, the anger, the nitpicking you see right there on the surface. But buried beneath all that is the underlying feeling that is actually driving the behavior. Maybe it's a fear of losing money, or maybe it's just a desperate need for respect. Labels let you dig beneath that mountain of surface-level quibbles to acknowledge that hidden primary emotion. And once a counterpart feels truly understood at that deepest underlying level, the surface-level obstacles often just miraculously evaporate. Which brings us to the most intense tool in the kit, the accusation audit. On the very first day of Voss's negotiation class, he runs this incredibly stressful exercise called 60 Seconds or She Dies. A student has exactly 1 minute to talk him out of killing a hostage. It's a brutal icebreaker, and spoiler alert, the hostage never makes it out. But he uses this to teach the accusation audit. This is a bold move where you proactively list out every terrible, horrible thing your counterpart could possibly say or think about you, and you literally speak them aloud first. By labeling their negative thoughts before they even get a chance to vocalize them, you instantly diffuse their power. It is an absolute masterclass in taking control and leading the narrative. Now, as you're deploying these tools, you absolutely have to know who you're dealing with. Voss categorizes negotiators into 3 archetypes: the assertive, the analyst, and the accommodator. Now, Hollywood absolutely loves to show the assertive, the fiery, aggressive table pounder as the ultimate winner. But the actual data tells a completely different story. A massive study of American lawyer negotiators found that blunt assertion is actually counterproductive most of the time. The truly elite effective negotiators actually fall into the more cooperative, observant categories. They don't scream to be heard, they listen, they gather data, and they use empathy to guide the outcome exactly where they want it to go. Okay, so how on earth do you physically project all of this at once? How do you package Marcus Aurelius' stoicism, Cesar Millan's calm assertiveness, and Chris Voss's tactical empathy into one practical delivery system? Well, you use the late-night FM DJ voice. And by that, I mean purposefully dropping your voice into a slow, measured, incredibly soothing tone with a downward inflection. When Voss was negotiating with armed fugitives in a Harlem apartment for 6 straight hours, he didn't bark a single order. He used this deeply calming voice. And the crazy part? It literally involuntarily lowers the heart rate of an angry counterpart, pulling them right out of that manic hostage mentality and into a collaborative state. When you pull all these threads together, the final picture is just completely fascinating. Whether you are ruling the entire Roman Empire, leading a pack of wild animals, or talking an armed fugitive into peacefully surrendering, the exact blueprint for elite leadership and negotiation is identical. It always starts internally, with stoic rationality, governing yourself first. Then, it projects externally as calm, assertive energy, firmly establishing you as a safe, stable leader. And finally, it is executed interpersonally through tactical empathy, making the other person feel so deeply understood that they actually willingly follow your lead. So I'm going to leave you with one final thought today. In your very next conflict, and I don't care if that's a multi-million-dollar boardroom negotiation, a really tense argument with a family member, or just dealing with a frustrated customer service rep on the phone, who are you going to be? Are you going to be the follower, taken hostage by your own reactive, brutish emotions? Or are you going to embrace the inside-out approach, become the master of your inner empire, and lead the interaction with calm, tactical empathy? Because at the end of the day, the choice and the power is entirely yours. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.